I don't think I'll ever forget the sound of my sister's voice that day. Not the funeral hymns, not the whispered condolences, not even the hollow words of comfort people tried to offer me while I stood there staring at my father's casket. No, what seared itself into my bones was the way Vanessa leaned close, her diamond earrings catching the light, and hissed, "Poor you. Still single at 38, I got the man, the money, the mansion." Her words sliced through the air like a razor, each one sharpened by years of calculated cruelty. She had waited, of course. My sister always knew the perfect moment to strike. Exactly 3 minutes after her arrival, she chose me standing alone at my father's side, raw with grief as the target of her gleeful cruelty. She thrived on catching me at my weakest. She always had. I could hear the piano music in the background, the carefully chosen soft melodies that were supposed to soothe mourners. But to me, it was just noise. My ears throbbed with the pounding of my heart, my cheeks burned, and I could feel the familiar rise of humiliation crawling up my neck. It was the same humiliation I'd known as a child, when Vanessa used to whisper poisonous things in my ear just loud enough so no one else could hear. Even in her grief, she looked perfect. Chanel dress hugging her curves, platinum hair in soft waves, mascara smudge-free despite the tears she had strategically shed in front of my father's old business partners. She wore her sorrow like a runway look. Even her grief was designer. "Tell me, Laura." She went on, tilting her head. "Just so. When was the last time a man even looked at you and saw something worth having?" Her question landed like a punch. I couldn't answer because the truth was that I didn't remember. My years since her betrayal blurred together therapy appointments, endless hours of work evenings spent alone trying to piece myself back together from the ruins she'd left me in. And then she gestured to him. Darren, my ex-fiancé, the man I once believed would stand beside me forever. He was across the room near the guest book, shaking hands with my father's colleagues, as though nothing had ever happened. His salt and pepper hair was carefully styled, his suit expensive, his smile polished. I remembered that smile, how I used to believe it belonged only to me. Now it belonged to her. She said his name casually, almost like a weapon she knew would cut me deepest. Darren feels bad, you know. Guilty even. But what could he do? The heart wants what it wants. The heart. That's what she called it. Not greed, not lust, not betrayal. The heart. I remembered her at my engagement party, clinking champagne glasses with me, laughing as we talked about wedding dresses, pretending to be excited to stand by my side as my maid of honor. And all the while she was watching him, studying him, planning to take him. Now, years later, she stood beside me at our father's funeral, her voice dripping with victory. "Look at us," she said softly. "Look at where we are. I'm living my dream. You're just surviving. Don't you want more, Laura? Don't you want what I have?" Her words twisted like barbed wire around my ribs. Because for a split second, God help me, I wondered if she was right. If my little one-bedroom apartment, my modest job, my quiet existence meant I had let her win. If my healing was really just a slow form of hiding. Then she tilted her head, her eyes narrowing with something that looked almost like pity. "Maybe someday you'll find someone. Not someone like Darren, obviously, but someone who doesn't mind that you're a little damaged." Damaged. That word hung in the air, crueler than anything she had said before. As if I were second-hand goods, lucky if anyone ever wanted me again. I felt something shift in me then. Maybe it was the therapy. Maybe it was 4 years of clawing my way back from the ashes. Or maybe it was just the sudden realization that she no longer had the power to define me. Because I wasn't alone. I hadn't been for a long time. "Actually, Vanessa," I said, and my voice was steadier than I expected, "there's something you should know." She turned, curiosity flickering across her perfect face, expecting weakness, expecting another chance to laugh at me. But when I stepped aside and called out, "Have you met my husband?" and I saw the blood drain from her cheeks as she recognized him, oh, that was the moment everything changed. She froze. Her hands trembled. Darren's smile faltered. And for the first time in years, I wasn't the one left broken. The moment Vanessa's face drained of color, I knew I had finally reclaimed something I thought she had stolen from me forever, my power. But before I tell you what happened when she recognized my husband, I need to take you back. Back to the beginning, to when I was still naive enough to believe in fairy tales, still foolish enough to think my sister would never betray me. I was 24 when I first met Darren. It was at the annual Children's Cancer Research Gala at the Fairmont Hotel, a night of glittering gowns and champagne flutes, where the air buzzed with ambition and opportunity. I remember how the chandelier light spilled across the marble floor like liquid gold. And then there he was, standing at the silent auction table, in a charcoal gray suit studying a weekend getaway to Napa with that air of calm authority. When my friend Sarah introduced us, his handshake was firm, his smile warm, and his eyes lingered on mine just long enough to make my pulse quicken. Laura works at Precision Marketing, Sarah gushed. She's the genius behind that eco-campaign everyone's been talking about. Impressive, Darren said, and I swear he meant it. For once I wasn't invisible. For once someone saw me. That night we talked about everything: sustainability, travel dreams, family traditions. He listened, really listened, like my thoughts mattered. When he asked for my card, I felt weightless. Our first date was in a tiny Italian restaurant. He brought me a single white tulip, my favorite flower. I don't even know how he remembered, but I melted. By the third date, I was already picturing introducing him to my family. And when he kissed me soft and tentative, I felt like I'd stumbled into the storybook ending I'd secretly always hoped for. My father adored him. They'd spend hours on the porch discussing business, golf, even whiskey preferences. I swear my dad's eyes lit up whenever Darren's name came up. That boy's going places, he'd tell me. And he clearly adores you. Vanessa. Oh, she played the role of supportive sister perfectly. She told me how lucky I was, how handsome he was, how perfect we looked together. She even whispered, "Better hold on tight, sis. Men like him don't stay single for long." I laughed, thinking she was just teasing. But now I know it wasn't a joke. It was a warning. 8 months later, Darren proposed in Vancouver. Sunset waterfront restaurant, the works. A ring slipped into dessert with "Will you marry me" written in chocolate. I said yes before he even finished his speech. The ring sparkled, but not as brightly as the future I believed we were stepping into. The next 6 months were a blur of wedding planning. I obsessed over venues, flowers, menus. Vanessa offered to help, actually insisted. "You're so busy with work, let me handle the details," she said sweetly. And I was grateful. I thought I had the kind of sister who would carry the load for me, who wanted nothing more than to see me happy. But soon little cracks appeared. Darren started working late more often. His phone buzzed constantly, and he'd whisper in the hallway, apologizing after with distracted kisses. And there was the perfume, rich floral and unfamiliar, lingering on his clothes, in his car, even on his pillow. He brushed it off. Clients. Women overdo it sometimes. I wanted to believe him, so I did. Meanwhile, Vanessa grew more present. She dropped by Darren's office with coffee, texted him directly about wedding details, and took meetings without me. "Your sister is amazing," Darren would say. "You're lucky to have her." Lucky, that word would haunt me. The breaking point came one Thursday night. I decided to surprise Darren with his favorite Thai food since he was working late. I carried the takeout up to his office, already rehearsing the smile I'd give when he looked up and saw me. The door was ajar, light spilling into the empty hallway. And then I heard it. His voice. "We can't keep doing this. She's going to find out." Her voice? Vanessa's voice. "Not if we're careful. The wedding's only 2 months away. After that, I didn't think." I pushed the door open. The takeout crashed to the floor. Curry spilled everywhere, but I didn't see it. I saw them tangled on his leather couch, half undressed, faces flushed. My fiancé and my sister. 4 months of planning, 8 months of engagement, 2 years of love I thought was real. All of it disintegrated in the space between one heartbeat and the next. I remember the sound of my engagement ring as I slipped it off and let it clatter onto his desk. It was sharp, final, like glass breaking. And then I was running, stumbling into my car, hands gripping the wheel so hard they turned white. By the time I stopped driving, I was in Seattle. Everything I owned stuffed into 3 suitcases and boxes, crammed into my little Honda Civic. I had no job, no fiancé, no sister. Just a 4th-floor studio apartment that smelled of old carpet and disinfectant. It was perfect, though, anonymous, empty. a place where I could vanish, rebuild, and start again even if I didn't yet know how. Those first weeks in Seattle were a blur of grief and survival. My little studio apartment was barely 400 square feet with a Murphy bed that creaked when I pulled it down, two grimy windows overlooking a brick wall, and a kitchenette that could barely fit one person. It smelled of bleach and damp plaster, and yet it was the first place that was mine. Not ours. Not his. Mine. I lived on cereal and instant coffee, rationing what little money I had left after putting down the deposit. Most days I felt like I was just floating through air too heavy to breathe. I cried in grocery stores, I cried while folding laundry, I cried when I poured a cup of coffee and realized it was only for me. I cried so much that my body ached, and yet I kept going, one small step at a time. The job search nearly broke me. I had quit my old position in a fit of despair, my resignation email more like a bleeding wound than a professional note. And now I sat in front of my laptop, crafting careful lies to explain the gap in my resume. Seeking new opportunities, looking for fresh challenges. The truth that I had run away from the wreckage of my life was too pathetic to admit. Rejections poured in, one after another, little digital knives reminding me I was unwanted, unneeded. Until one day the phone rang. A small digital marketing agency called Bloom Creative needed an administrative assistant. Answering phones, scheduling, filing, grunt work. Nothing like the creative career I once had. But I said yes, because survival doesn't wait for dignity. My first day, I sat in my car in the parking lot whispering to myself, "You can do this. You can answer phones. You can survive 8 hours." The office was chaotic, designers arguing about fonts, account managers yelling into phones, printers whirring non-stop. My desk was in the corner with a clunky old computer and a phone that never stopped ringing. My supervisor, Janet, was a frazzled woman who drank coffee like it was oxygen. "Don't lose anything important. Don't take the designers too seriously. They're all neurotic." That was my training. And somehow I managed. I scheduled, filed, smiled politely. My world shrank to tasks that didn't demand my heart, just my attention, and in that shrinking I found a strange kind of relief. Still, the grief followed me everywhere. On lunch breaks, I'd sit at Pike Place Market, eating sandwiches while watching ferries cross Elliott Bay. I'd stare at the shifting colors of the water, wondering who I was now. Was I broken forever? Was I nothing more than the woman her sister had destroyed? It was during one of those weeks when everything felt unbearably heavy that I met Ruth. She was from accounting, silver-haired and cardigan-clad, with the kind of quiet humor that sneaks up on you. One day, after a particularly brutal phone call with a client, I found myself crying in a bathroom stall. My sobs must have given me away because she knocked gently and said, "Rough day, huh?" We ended up at a dive bar that evening, sipping ginger ales and splitting fries. She told me about her divorce, her rebellious teenage daughter, the nights she thought she'd never get through. And then she slid a business card across the sticky table. "Therapy saved me," she said simply. "This woman changed my life. Try her." Dr. Patricia Chin's office was nothing like I imagined. No sterile walls, no cold lighting, just bookshelves filled with novels and poetry, succulents in mismatched pots, and a window overlooking a little garden. She didn't start with Darren, or Vanessa, or the betrayal. She asked me who I was before all of that, who I had been. And I couldn't answer at first. I didn't remember. But slowly, through sessions that broke me open and stitched me back together, I started to recall. I remembered the ambitious girl who once landed her dream job right out of college, the daughter who planned surprise parties for her parents, the friend who drove 6 hours to help someone move, the woman who had been whole long before she was shattered. Healing wasn't a straight line. Some days I felt strong, ready to take on the world. Other days I couldn't get out of bed without crying. But gradually, the good days began to outnumber the bad. Ruth became my anchor. She introduced me to her book club where women gathered to drink wine, debate novels, and laugh until midnight. At first, I sat silently in the corner feeling like an intruder. But over time, I found myself laughing too, speaking up, living again. And one night after leaving book club, I realized something startling. I had spent 3 whole hours without thinking about Darren or Vanessa. That's when I left a voicemail for Dr. Chin. I think I'm ready to start dating again, I said, my voice trembling. Not because I'm lonely, but because maybe I have something to give. Her response the next day was simple, but it cracked something open in me. That she said is exactly the right reason. Dating after betrayal felt like walking barefoot over glass, every step hesitant, every interaction braced for pain. My first attempt was a disaster. Ruth set me up with her neighbor's brother Kevin, a sweet but painfully boring accountant, who spent our entire coffee date lecturing me about his coin collection. I smiled politely, stirred my latte, and counted the seconds until I could leave. The second date was worse. A software engineer from a dating app who showed up late, ordered the most expensive things on the menu, and then spent 2 hours explaining my own career to me, like I'd never heard of marketing before. When the bill came, he suggested splitting it evenly after he'd inhaled appetizers, cocktails, and a steak, while I'd had one salad and a single glass of wine. I remember walking back to my car thinking, maybe I'm just not meant for this. Maybe I've already had my one chance at love and it was stolen. I told Dr. Chin as much during my next session. Maybe I'm designed to be alone, I whispered, fighting back tears. She leaned forward, her eyes calm and steady. Or maybe you're just meeting the wrong people in the wrong circumstances. Sometimes the right ones appear when you've stopped searching so desperately. I didn't believe her, not really. But 3 months later, Marcus walked into my life. It was an ordinary Tuesday morning at Bloom Creative. I was juggling schedules and client emails when Janet introduced him. "This is Marcus Hamilton," she said briskly. "He's leading the Morrison Hotels project. You'll be his point of contact." He wasn't the kind of man who turned heads in an obvious way. He was only about 5'10", with dark hair touched silver at the temples, and eyes that shifted between gray and green depending on the light. But he carried himself with quiet confidence, the kind that doesn't need to shout to be heard. His handshake was firm, his smile warm but unpracticed. He looked me in the eye, not through me, not past me, but at me. Over the next few weeks, we worked together closely. Marcus was different. He responded to emails on time, gave feedback that was thoughtful, never belittling. He asked questions that showed he valued my input. Most clients treated me like a glorified secretary. He treated me like a partner. One afternoon, after a long meeting, he asked me directly, "What do you think makes a hospitality brand memorable?" I froze. No one ever asked me things like that. But after a moment, I answered honestly, consistency. Not just in logos or colors, but in how people feel. The best hotels make you feel understood, like you belong. He nodded slowly, jotting it down in his leather notebook. Exactly. His voice carried respect, not condescension. And something inside me, something long buried, stirred. As the weeks passed, our conversations drifted from work into personal things. He told me about growing up in Portland, about moving to Seattle to help his aging mother. He asked about my life with genuine curiosity. I offered carefully edited answers, skirting around Darren and Vanessa, still too afraid to open that wound. But Marcus never pushed. He simply listened, patient and steady. When the project wrapped, I felt a pang of loss. Our meetings had become the highlight of my week, little islands of calm in a sea of chaos. As we shook hands in the lobby, I said, "I hope we'll work together again." He hesitated, then smiled. "Actually, I was wondering if you'd like to have dinner sometime. Not work-related, just dinner." My heart stuttered. I wanted to say no, to run, to protect the fragile life I had rebuilt. But before I could overthink, I heard myself say softly, "I'd like that." Our first dinner was at a cozy French bistro in Fremont. He brought me a single white tulip. The gesture startled me, not because it was familiar, but because it felt sincere, uncalculated. "I remembered you said they were your favorite," he explained almost sheepishly. That night we talked for hours about books, childhood memories, places we wanted to visit. He made me laugh until my cheeks hurt. And when he walked me to my car, I realized something terrifying. I wanted to see him again. And we did. A second date. A third. Slowly, carefully, we built something new. He never rushed me, never demanded confessions I wasn't ready to share. He simply showed up, consistent, kind, steady. 3 months in, over a quiet dinner at his apartment, Marcus poured himself a glass of wine and said, "There's something I should probably tell you." My stomach clenched. Those words had always meant disaster in the past. He met my eyes. I used to compete directly with someone you might know, Darren Mitchell. The name hit me like a punch. The glass slipped from my fingers, clinking against the table. Marcus reached out, steadying my hand. I figured you might have a reaction, he said gently. Do you want to talk about it? And in that moment, I knew fate had twisted the knife in the most unexpected way. When Marcus said Darren's name, the room spun. It was like a ghost had walked in, dragging the smell of betrayal with him. My instinct was to run, to grab my bag, to flee before the universe could laugh at me again. But Marcus didn't press. He didn't push. He just held my hand steady and warm, his thumb brushing gently against my skin. I know, he said softly, his voice calm. It's a lot. But I want you to know, whatever Darren was to you, whatever he took from you, it doesn't define what you and I are building. Something in me cracked then. Because Darren had defined me for so long, his betrayal shaping every corner of my life like a scar. But here was Marcus looking at me not as a victim, not as damaged goods, but as a woman standing in front of him with her own worth. For the first time in years, I let myself breathe, and I let myself fall. Our relationship unfolded like a slow dawn. No fireworks, no games, just the steady light of someone who showed up again and again. We built routines. Sunday mornings at the farmer's market, evenings cooking simple dinners together, laughing over burnt garlic bread. He met Ruth in the book club, winning them over effortlessly with his dry humor and unshakable patience. 16 months after that first dinner, Marcus proposed. Not in a grand gesture, not with choreographed romance, just in our living room one rainy October night. He handed me a mug of tea, knelt by the couch, and said, "Laura, you make my life lighter. Will you marry me?" And I said yes. 2 years later, at my father's funeral, I stood with Marcus's hand wrapped firmly in mine, as Vanessa's triumphant smirk froze on her lips. She had strutted in dripping diamonds and self-satisfaction, ready to remind me of all the things she thought I'd lost. But when I stepped aside and introduced my husband, the very man who had bested Darren in business, the man Darren still resented, her confidence cracked like thin glass. Her hand trembled when she shook his. Darren's face went pale, his jaw tightening as though the weight of karma itself had landed on his shoulders. "Marcus Hamilton," my husband said smoothly, extending his hand, his voice laced with calm authority. "Pleasure to finally meet you, Vanessa." Darren. The sound of their names on his lips was deliberate, surgical. I watched recognition ripple through the mourners standing nearby. Whispers began to stir, and in that moment the roles shifted. For once, I wasn't the broken woman at the mercy of their betrayal. I was the one holding the cards. Darren's voice broke, first thin and brittle. "You planned this," he snapped. "The marriage, the timing, all of it just to humiliate me." The absurdity of it made me laugh. Really laugh. And the sound rang through that somber room, bright and unshaken. "You think I married Marcus to get back at you," I said, my voice steady. "That would require me to still care about you." The truth of it struck me as the words left my mouth. I didn't care anymore. Not about Darren, not about Vanessa's opinion, not about the years of whispers or pity. The past no longer owned me. Marcus's fingers tightened around mine, just a squeeze, but enough. Vanessa looked around, realizing the tide had turned. The envy she thrived on had shifted direction. People weren't admiring her anymore, they were watching her stumble, and she hated it. Her eyes darted, her lips parted as though she might claw back control, but nothing came. For the first time, she was speechless, and for the first time, I felt free. 3 days later, there was a knock at my apartment door. When I opened it, I almost didn't recognize her. No diamonds, no perfect makeup, just jeans, a gray sweater, and dark circles under her eyes. Her hands were bare. "Laura," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Can we talk?" I stood there, frozen, the storm of the past pressing against my chest. Part of me wanted to slam the door, to protect the peace I had built. But another part, the part that still remembered two little girls sharing secrets under blanket forts, told me to step aside. So I did. She walked in slowly, as though she were entering sacred ground. And in a way, she was. Because this life, this kitchen table, this marriage, this home was sacred to me. Vanessa wrapped her fingers around the coffee mug I offered her, her hands shaking. "Everything's falling apart, Laura," she said, tears pooling in her eyes. "Everything. Vanessa's tears slid down her face as she clutched the mug like it was the only anchor she had left. For a moment, I just stared at her. My sister, the woman who had stolen the man I once loved, who mocked me at my lowest, who fed on my humiliation, was sitting at my kitchen table unraveling. "Darren's leaving me," she choked out. He's already moved out. He said I was too much, that he never should have." Her voice broke and she buried her face in her hands. For years, I had fantasized about this moment. The day karma would finally catch up to her. The day I would watch her crumble the way she once watched me. And now here it was. My sister broken desperate, asking for comfort from the very person she had betrayed. 1,000 thoughts raced through me. Memories of her sneering at my father's funeral, of Darren's betrayal, of every cruel whisper she had ever slipped into my ear. Part of me wanted to spit her words back at her. "Poor you. Look at where you are." But another part of me, the part that had walked through fire, rebuilt herself from ashes, and found love again, knew this was different. She wasn't here to mock me. She was here because she had nowhere else to go. "I don't know what to do," she whispered. I thought he was everything. And now." Her shoulders shook as the sobs came raw and jagged. I sat down across from her, folding my hands on the table. The silence between us was thick, filled with years of damage. "Do you remember," I said slowly, "when we were kids? How we used to build forts with Dad's old blankets?" Her head lifted, eyes red and swollen. She nodded weakly. "You used to tell me you'd always protect me, that no matter what you'd be on my side." "I know." Her voice cracked. "I don't deserve your forgiveness, Laura. I don't deserve anything." And she was right. She didn't. Forgiveness wasn't something I owed her. It wasn't something she could demand. It was mine to give or mine to withhold. For a long time, I just sat there watching her crumble. Then I said the words that had been buried in me for years. "You broke me, Vanessa. You took the one person I thought I could trust and you ripped him away from me. You left me alone in the darkest season of my life. And then instead of apologizing, you laughed. You mocked me. You wanted me to stay broken." She winced, each word hitting her like a stone. "But I didn't stay broken," I continued. My voice was calm now, steady. "I found a life you couldn't take from me. I found people who love me for who I am. I found a man who doesn't see me as damaged but as whole. You didn't win, Vanessa. You lost me. And that's something you can never get back." The room was quiet except for her soft, shuddering breaths. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I'm so, so sorry." And for the first time, I believed her. Not because she said it perfectly, but because the woman in front of me wasn't my glamorous, cruel sister anymore. She was just a human being, flawed, broken, terrified. I didn't rush to hug her. I didn't offer easy absolution, but I also didn't turn her away. I let her sit there with her pain in the home I had built. And maybe that was enough. Later, when Marcus came home and saw us sitting there, he didn't ask questions. He just placed a gentle hand on my shoulder, grounding me, reminding me that no matter what, I wasn't alone anymore. That night, lying in bed beside him, I thought about how life has a way of circling back. How betrayal had once nearly destroyed me, and yet in some strange, twisted way, it had also led me here to healing, to love, to strength I never knew I had. And I realized something. Revenge hadn't saved me. Karma hadn't healed me. What saved me was the choice I made again and again to keep living, to keep believing there was something worth rebuilding, to keep choosing myself even when no one else did. So if you're watching this and you've been betrayed, if you've been left in the ashes by someone you loved and trusted, please hear me. You are not broken beyond repair. You are not unlovable. You are not doomed to stay in the shadow of what someone else did to you. You can rise. You can rebuild. And one day you'll look back and realize their betrayal was never the end of your story. It was only the beginning of a stronger one. If this story touched you, please don't forget to like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe for more stories like this. And most importantly, leave a comment. Tell me about your own journey, your own lessons, because you never know who might need to hear your words.